How did the world's most powerful royal families maintain habits so extreme that their own courts actively covered them up for decades? King Ludwig II of Bavaria spent the equivalent of hundreds of millions in today's money building private fantasy castles he intended to live in completely alone. He scheduled dinners for imaginary guests, held full conversations with empty chairs, and dismissed any servant who acknowledged the absurdity of what they witnessed. Ludwig was not considered mad by his inner circle for most of his reign, which is somehow the most unsettling part of this entire story. Neuschwanstein, his most famous castle, was occupied by Ludwig for a total of 11 nights before his mysterious death in 1886. His court didn't just tolerate the empty banquet halls, they staffed them, funded them, and kept meticulous records as though everything was perfectly normal. The servants who set those phantom tables were following direct orders from ministers who understood exactly what they were doing. Power at that scale doesn't just permit strange behavior, it demands an audience willing to perform alongside it. Ludwig's court protected him not out of loyalty, but because his delusions had become the architecture of their own authority. Every empty chair at his table represented a choice someone made to keep filling the wine glass anyway. And Ludwig was far from the only royal whose court quietly built the stage for something deeply unsettling. Ludwig wasn't an outlier. He was just the one who left the most visible ruins behind. Across Europe and beyond, royal courts embedded habits just as strange into the fabric of official ceremony. The Spanish Habsburgs required courtiers to kneel and crawl across marble floors to reach the king, even during medical emergencies. At Versailles, Louis XIV turned the act of waking up into a performance, with a ticketed audience and a ranked order of who could hand him his shirt. The Ottoman sultans kept hundreds of servants whose sole function was to remain completely silent in the imperial presence at all times. In the Chinese imperial court, the emperor's food was tasted, announced, and served according to rituals so elaborate that the meal was cold before it arrived. These weren't eccentricities tolerated by the powerful. They were requirements, written into court law and enforced with genuine consequences. The stranger the ritual, the more clearly it announced that this person existed outside the rules binding everyone else. And when power writes its own rules that completely, the records it leaves behind tend to be carefully managed. The official record was never meant to be honest. It was meant to be useful. Every royal court employed scribes whose real job wasn't documentation, but careful, deliberate erasure of anything inconvenient. What survived wasn't what was true. It was what the crown decided future generations were allowed to know. But private letters got misfiled, servants kept diaries, and foreign ambassadors wrote home with details no local historian would dare preserve. Those accidental leaks are where the real story lives, buried in footnotes that nobody was supposed to read. Frederick the Great of Prussia, for instance, was officially a warrior king of iron discipline, yet his personal correspondence reveals a man obsessed with his dogs to a degree that alarmed his own generals. The dog slept in his bed, ate from his plate, and attended military briefings as a matter of standing royal protocol. His staff recorded it dutifully, then spent decades trying to quietly lose those particular records. What they couldn't lose was the pattern, because across every dynasty, the cover-ups followed the same shape as the habits themselves. Every dynasty we've covered kept its strangest habits hidden, but the hiding itself tells you something important. These weren't isolated quirks belonging to a few unlucky bloodlines scattered across different centuries. The pattern is too consistent, too predictable. Unchecked power produces the same distortions regardless of the flag or the throne. When no one can say no to you, the edges of your behavior stop getting worn smooth by ordinary friction. Rituals calcify into obsessions, preferences harden into demands, and the people around you learn to call it all completely normal. That's not a medieval problem or a European one. It's a structural one, built into the architecture of absolute deference itself. The strangest royal habits weren't symptoms of madness, they were symptoms of a system working exactly as designed. History didn't give us these stories as curiosities to laugh at from a safe distance. It gave them to us as a mirror, and what's looking back isn't entirely unfamiliar.